Welcome, everyone, to Esports Weekly. As we head into the second week of our summer split, we have a lot to cover, from our recaps of our leagues to the dankest of memes and fails. To help me do so, I do have two lovely gentlemen right here on by. It's Pretty Hair and Gormizer. What an entrance, fellas.
I know. Welcome back. It's Monday.
So coordinated.
That's it's good material for Joe's next meme video.
Yeah.
We got to help him out.
Thinking ahead.
That guy had 2
nice
months to
little
work
tracks.
with, and then he just had a little week of online play. So I'm very curious to see what he was able to cook up.
I'm excited for it.
We just got to keep challenging him. We're just going to make it shorter and shorter, and then it's going to be like, you got to make a meme video every single day, Joe. See what you can do.
The 12:30 p.m. meme video. Tune in 30 minutes for the next one.
But we're going to make our way through the content we have today, starting off with console. We hit up the start of the phase during last Monday, and actually later on today, we're going to hit up week 2. So starting off with Pretty Hair, any thoughts on PS4 play?
Yeah, I mean, we got to see a lot of cool stuff from these teams that are coming back from LAN. A lot of them, their first LAN, some of those guys have been around the block every single time. We saw a lot of hot plays, though, this weekend, and I think overall we're starting to see these console players, PS4, not necessarily in particular, start to look really dangerous on even these blasters, which when consoles started, that was the main class that was like, man, can these guys do this as well as PC? But some of these plays from Atomic Boom definitely put on display that yes, indeed they can.
And there was a lot for me, specifically because Flashpoint wasn't there for the EU side of things.
Right.
So you actually got to get the spotlight on other players, on other teams. And I think that's always something that's nice to say. When you have a team, I want to say that is as dominant, because they were 30-0 during the last time they ran through until they got to LAN. So having them out of the equation, getting to see some of the other teams come up is always really big.
It's nice to see, as we saw with the Quadra kill on Drogos, where that's just been more of a topic of conversation as he's come back into popularity, and with the slower projectiles and everything, it definitely affects that level of play. So you just mentioned, Pretty Hair, that blasters have always been kind of a major topic for console. Do you think they're going to be leaning into that more on PS4?
I think they just get better and better at it. The reason being, there's a caveat to this too. I think tracking heroes or champions are easier on console because of just the way the aim assist works. However, the aim assist kind of goes against. It dissuades you from leading your target as effectively as you would want to, so that's kind of why there's that discrepancy there between those two.
And Gore, what are your thoughts on Xbox?
I mean, I thought it was really interesting. This week, I know not PS4, EU side of things was a little bit different with two teams that I hadn't actually seen before, but I know North America brought in pretty much the two teams that are always going up against each other. It's Fable and Elevate. And for a while there, Elevate, I want to say, was just dominating everybody, but these two teams are pretty much the same team, except it's 10 players that constantly swap with each other.
Yeah, a lot of that roster swapping goes on here. But Fable and Elevate is a very tense matchup. There's a lot of Twitter banter that goes back and forth every single time these guys play. There are very clear fans of one versus the other, though. Fable has brought in. You guys remember Blue Ball? The Vuvuzuela guy from Worlds, they brought him in as their coach now, the guy who runs the console corner. So I think Fable, recently anyway, have started to pull ahead in this matchup. Like you said, a lot of roster changes go into that, but they start to pull ahead.
I feel like quads were just the theme of this week, as we see some stuff later, but then also here in console. And speaking of blasters, we just saw the one with Drogos, but then there's one with Bomb King as well. Sir James Parker showing out for Xbox.
SJP's always had a pretty incredible Bomb King here, and that was just a very nice display of how Bomb King ultimates can work. So he preemptively places his Poppy Bomb down, starts the wind, and this is something actually we had this girl that used to work in QA that just literally mained Bomb King. She actually showed me that trick. You put the Poppy down preemptively, start your King Bomb, and then after the wind-up animation is basically already complete, that's when you pop yourself up over the wall, which is kind of what SJP just did there, and he placed it beautifully as a result because the wind-up animation's already complete as you arrive at your destination.
It's one of those small things. Like when you master that, because we've seen it in the PPL a few times, that is, I think, the big key when you're a Bomb King. Like, you change team fights.
Granted, old Poppy Bomb used to be way more effective because you could just clear half the map and then just arrive.
Well, moving from console over into PPL territory, we had the first week, and I know we had our predictions and everything, but we're a little bit on the unknown of what to expect because of all the roster changes. And so starting off with Gore, what were your thoughts on how everything did shake out in the schedule with those changes?
I was really happy with Splice and the way they performed and the way G2 performed. I think those were the two. Like, G2 I didn't have really big question marks about. It was just nice seeing them be as solid as they were. But Splice, it was, okay, you guys are here to play. And even them, they go 5 games against 2 of the teams that have been giving a lot of trouble to even the top 2 teams, and they're like, yeah, we weren't playing well enough. We want to get back to the grindstone. We want to get better for next week.
I mean, it's a good sign that you already see Splice come out. They take both of their sets to 5-game. That's more than can be said for the spring split or the season 1 team that played for this Splice roster, as well as the fact that, yes, G2, I think they have a great support, and they have so much flexibility inherently that they were able to kind of maintain their dominance. However, I got to keep reiterating until it happens, until Rock Monkey plays with Envy again in this matchup against G2, I'm not really going to pull any judgments on it. That being said, I will judge the Fnatic Na'Vi set that we did get to see, and that was extremely impressive to me, the way that they were able to come out and sort of hit the ground running with a brand new player who has never played main tanked anyway on the PPL level. He's played a lot of triple tank back in the day. We kind of memed about that a little bit on the broadcast, but
it was, and I want to say just a nice, refreshing feeling, because it
didn't feel like they missed the
draft. I was looking at it and I was like, this looks exactly like the same draft they would have had with Unbelievable there. So I was really curious. I was like, who's switching around?
Sure,
just going to be lazy.
Yeah, the drafts. I mean, they have to stay the same, I think, if they're going to have any chance of competing. But it's crazy that he was able to just kind of, like I said, hit the ground running. Doesn't feel like he's limiting Na'Vi in any way. Like, sometimes when you see this sort of thing, they'll like have to get his picks first, or like over prioritize for this player or that player, but it just wasn't the case.
Well, it's so crazy to think that even in games where they did have a single frontliner, they still defaulted to Lazy being on that pick, when I think someone was saying, okay, in this case, you put Phoenix on it. But they were leaning so heavily into just sticking with that strategy. But that was week number 1 of the PPL, and as far as prediction stuff, man, I'm a little pissed at how the percentage kind of turned out for the
Why would
success
you be
rate.
pissed?
Because I made
what
my
is there to be
prediction
pissed off about?
Not realizing that Rock Monkey wasn't going to be playing for Envy. Now, I'm a perfectionist, man. That 88% despite 8 being my favorite number.
Oh, me
I'm
too.
not liking it. Hey! Oh, that was a bad
Don't worry,
high
it
five.
wasn't on camera.
There's a whole purpose for
They'll
that.
never
but
know.
You're sitting at 100% over there.
I sure am. But I lost the meta discussion game, so what do I know?
Oh, we have another game.
You have another chance
later,
to get a lot of points.
I'm already starting in the hole today, boys. Feels good. Feels
Nick
good.
actually starts with a -10 for some reason.
Gore, please.
I didn't even check to know, like, does it stack, like, on the points? I'm guessing it's a clean slate, and we'll see how everything goes. But we're going into week number 2, a whole new set of games with these teams, and now we have a bit more of a feel for how they did after week 1. As far as any of the teams that were standout or maybe surprised you, what did you think?
I mean, as far as what I think I would change about this week, it's kind of tough to say, right? None of the big swings. It's going to be those 3-2 sets that we see run back later in the season that might be a little bit different. Like SK maybe gets a little bit more traction with their roster. Renegades maybe it's so tough. It's that middle of the pack. That's what's really, I think, going to be the largest amount of shaking out, so to speak. Na'Vi and Fnatic are looking about as strong as they ever have. G2, until they get beat, how can we say anything different about them? You know what I mean?
And for me, it's really, like you said, pretty much the bottom 3. SK, Renegade, Splice. I want to know where they all end up, because they all looked really solid against each other. And I think SK and Renegades play, so this will be later this week. So that'll be kind of more cementing, I think, of where those two stand against each other. And North America, at least the bottom half, is very, very up in the air.
But for EU, the first match we have is Fnatic versus NIP. And Fnatic obviously still looking strong, even with the matchup versus
It's an
Na'Vi.
understatement,
But
somehow.
And NIP, though, we saw Simsaloo being added there. We don't know exactly the feature of that and everything, but Perdo as well, just playing to his strengths.
Yeah, 8 months ago, this would have been the tail of the tape. So this would have been the headliner matchup, but it's just not the case anymore. That time of NIP being such a dominant force in EU is just over. It's really not any ifs, ands, or buts about it anymore. It's Na'Vi and Fnatic at the top. I think Fnatic should handle this matchup easily.
Fnatic is probably the scariest team I think you'd have to end up against. Like, the only team I think that can regularly take them the entire distance is going to be Na'Vi. I think G2, Envy, on good days we've seen them go that distance, but I feel like they are just a different beast to have to deal with. And NIP, even with the changes they made, even with maybe being able to attack the meta in a different angle, it's just not enough.
They feel like they're making changes out of necessity rather than these are things they want to attack, problems specifically they've identified and want to adjust around. That's the difference for me.
Yeah.
So then who did you fellas predict would actually take away the match?
In this matchup, Fnatic.
Yeah, Fnatic.
I think pretty much by your explanations beforehand. Fnatic's just been much more consistent. And I think during the first split, whenever we would watch NIP, there's still a hope of, it's still the veterans of the scene. We're going to see them pick it up. But when it came against Fnatic or Na'Vi, they just weren't able to pull through just
but then
yet.
it just doesn't happen week after week. And, you know, you can only ride your reputation for so long.
But then the next match is going to be Na'Vi versus Virtus.pro. So we were talking about how strong Fnatic has been. And even with the match between Na'Vi and Fnatic, I think it's so crazy how we expect them to go far, but it keeps coming down to the wire. So Na'Vi, I would expect in this matchup to also play to that strength.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're a completely dominant force in this region, and there's no reason they shouldn't be able to beat the bottom team. Simple as that.
I mean, Madara had really good games last week. I don't think that's going to make a difference here. It's just one of those things, I think, in the moment, even with as well as he was performing, they weren't able to pull out the wins they needed. They weren't able to kind of stand above. And then you look at Na'Vi and the fact that they were able to just integrate Lazy like it was nothing. There's no way I really see Virtus.pro being able to pull this back in their favor.
And then Mutu is also bringing out things like the Shaolin and everything in addition to these picks.
That's actually something I find to be really scary, just the possibility, because he's traditionally been just a hit scan guy through and through. But even when he's playing projectile characters, whether it's Drogo, Shaolin, or Xin, those are the main three that you would normally see him on. You can see that it's Mutu. You know what I mean? Like everything's quick, everything's still flicky and twitchy, and he brings that element. And I'm curious to see, because I consider Xin not a very mechanically difficult character to like hit the in-hands on, which is normally what Mutu's kind of known for. He's more of, you know, cooldowns, positioning.
Yeah.
That's why I think a guy like Bugsy, who's just played 6 million games of Paladin, succeeds on that character, right? Versus a guy like Mutu who can just hit any shot at any given time. It'll be interesting to watch him develop and see if he starts to become more of that player.
Cool. And as far as predictions go, pulling from Envy to Throner a bit, I think my third eye tells me that we're all going for Na'Vi a bit here.
Solid.
Yeah.
Solid bet there. Black and yellow for me.
It's really, really hard, guys. I couldn't tell.
See, if we keep up, as long as we choose whatever he chooses,
No,
we'll get the 100%.
I mean,
That's
look.
the secret.
I refuse to look at other people's predictions when I make mine. So.
The matchups that you guys missed were there were 3 2s, right? I mean, they weren't exactly, you know, blowouts. The
True.
G2 Envy set was a little bit more so, but that could have easily gone Splice's way, I think, in week 1.
Well, going over to NA a little bit, we've got SK versus G2. And SK, we got to see some of their changes as well as G2 in action. This is the flip-flop matchup.
Yeah, this is literally like this is NIP Fnatic of NA. 8 months ago, this would have been the headline matchup, but not anymore for me. It's all G2.
Yeah, that's pretty much what, especially with the way that Vex just kind of seamlessly integrated and performed. Not only like, okay, this is where we want our support, he was exceeding expectations for me. So it's just one of those areas where it's just like, if G2 looks this good with that addition, and now you're giving them a little bit more practice time, they are going to dominate.
And it's really funny because this is that Mexican standoff in the old Western town where they just exchange 2 players, right? And then they all go off with their new rosters into the sunset. But right now it's G2.
Yeah, that is actually the perfect comparison. But Wardoom, during the set last week, we saw where he spent 3 games without dying, and he has made that change officially over to support for that roster as well. Do you think that that was more of them working as a collective, or the fact that Wardoom seemed to just fit into that role?
It's more of a Wardoom thing, I think.
Yeah, I think that's his position.
I think talking with some of the guys from G2 after the fact, after the Masters land, that he has that reservation even on frontline where if he's not feeling like it's, and that's a fine thing to have, right? Like if you play a lot of frontline and solo queue, that's probably just muscle memory for you, is that if you don't feel like you can get in and get out of an engagement all on your own, even though you do have Cuss Cutie behind you, that reservation, that split second can sometimes make the difference between an opportunity being there or the window being closed.
And I think when you're a frontline, like that's kind of a big key, because it's like, okay, do I
It's a
go
great
and contest
support
the point?
reflex to have.
So, yeah, as a support, it's like I'm just going to stay alive for 3 games and never die.
Yeah, can't be mad at that.
Predictions from you guys then. SK versus G2, who takes it?
G2 still.
Oh yeah, G2.
Cool. Well, G2, they had such a great performance in their doubleheader that we saw the last week, and I expect for them to roll through with a lot of that same strength here. But our next match between Envy and Splice. And Gore, you had actually picked Splice in one of their matches last week. I want to know your thoughts on how they performed so far.
I think they did really well. Actually, they did better than I was really expecting. It was one of those things I was thinking that they were going to have not easy of a time against Renegades. It was going to be something that they were looking at maybe a 3-1, and then they take that to 5 games. And I'm like, that was when my eyes were like opened. It's like, okay, so these guys are here to play. And then now they've come into the point where they take SK to 5 games. Even after those performances, they lost both sets, and all of the players are thinking, we didn't do well enough in our own eyes, so we're just going to get better at this. They're all doubling down, trying to make themselves better. So I think with the way things could have gone, that's probably the best timeline for them, because it's like, you lose, which sucks, but now you are trying even harder, which I think is going to make them an even better team.
So predictions from both of you for this one.
I've got Envy here as well.
I've got Envy here, just because even though Splice are looking good, I mean, Rock Monkey's back, right?
Rock's back.
Right?
Rocco's back. That is confirmed, I think, for this week. On top of the fact that if Splice were going to get a win, it was going to be in one of those matchups from week 1. I think it's going to come either from SK or from the Renegades, and the Renegades are just going to get scarier and scarier. They made a roster change, again, one that I think they wanted to make rather than one out of necessity. They added a very high-caliber player in Moonshopper, and they're not going to get any easier.
Yep. So now heading back on over to the EU side, looks like we have some matches coming on up, but thoughts on just NA and kind of what they've been showing so far from that and compared to the EU?
I think overall, it's kind of tough to say for me. I think NA overall has the chance to be a bit closer overall than Europe. I think Na'Vi, I don't see any timeline in which Na'Vi and Fnatic get closed in on, so to speak, from the rest of the pack in EU. But realistically, I mean, I think I could see a world where Renegades, where Splice, where SK even, start to pick up a lot more steam, and at least maybe we have a top 2 through 5 competition. Yeah. G2 might be a little bit out in front. Envy might pull out a little bit in front. It's tough to say. But I think overall North America has a chance of being a little bit closer than Europe does.
It kind of feels to me like it's like 1 and 2, and then a very small gap, then 3, 4, 5 for North America, whereas Europe is kind of like
I agree with
1
that.
and 2, 3, 4, and 5.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So next up, it is going to be Na'Vi versus Mouse Sports. And I think this is a similar situation to some of the earlier matches we were talking about. Na'Vi being pretty dominating and Mouse Sports showing that potential, but still struggling.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be Na'Vi here for me.
I'm still getting that like Frog Isle game versus Fnatic running through my head, where it was the death segment before was longer than the game that we casted.
Yeah, that's just the way it is, I think, with some of these matches.
When you have Fnatic, or in this case Na'Vi on the other side, I think that's just going to be the way it rolls.
We have one of those sweep weeks, I think, every split, and this might be one of them.
Ah, interesting. So the fact that Lazy and everything was performing so well for Na'Vi should be able to carry over with this, but Mouse is also facing off against NIP.
Yeah, this one could get interesting.
Yeah.
This one could get interesting, right? You've got Mouse Sports and Virtus Pro, in my eyes, continuously improving. NIP are a team on the decline. Let's just call it like it is. And they're kind of maybe treading water is the way to put it, right? They haven't gotten much worse. They haven't gotten really much better. And these other teams, it's only a matter of time before VP and Mouse catch up. Is this week that week? I don't know.
I think out of the 2 other teams, VP and Mouse has the best chance of taking this one all the way to a Game 5. They also have, I think, the most chance of being able to take it. I don't know if it's going to happen this week or if it's going to happen the next time they meet up, but I do think the Mouse is in this area where, like you said, they're on the rise.
And what did you think of Sim's play?
Hey, I mean, doesn't really look like he's missed much of a beat. He was still, even in his absence in competitive play, playing, streaming, not really falling off super hard, and they've been having a long time to scrim, to be honest. I mean, these other 2 teams, Na'Vi and Fnatic, have been at LAN, and that's just scrims on steroids, so to speak. So it's not like Fnatic and Na'Vi are losing ground on these teams exactly. But these guys have just, had nothing but each other to grind with all those weeks.
So then who takes the match?
Still NIP for me. Until they lose, I mean, that's sort of how I do my predictions. Until Mouse show me that they can, why would I vote for them?
Indeed. Well, that's going to be our lock-in for NIP, and I mean, I think we're all kind of hoping that because there's veterans there, we want to see them perform at that same level that we've seen them in the past, and maybe with the shakeup they'll be able to. But next up, it is going to be Envy versus Renegades.
This could be a tough one to call, to be honest. It comes down to literally how fast do the Renegades gain ground on these top two out of North America? And we've seen time and time again, at least for G2, Renegades have like a kryptonite for G2 somehow figure out. Those always tend to be like pretty decent games through the first season. Even through the spring split, they had some scary run-ins with the Renegades. But adding Moonchopper, I thought he looked great in week 1. I'm still probably going to give this one to Envy, but I think it could be close.
I think it's going to be closer specifically because of Moonchopper, because if you think about it, you look at Rock Monkey, and you look at how he's kind of, I want to say like a center stone right now for Envy. Like every other member of that team makes it work well, but then you put this guy at the center, and then you get Moonchopper, who's like, okay, I'm just going to flank you and kill you. As long as they can get something like that rolling, which I think Moonchopper is going to be good at, they might be able to get it, but Envy seem like they know exactly what strategy they
Rock's
want.
going to be rusty coming back from vacation. He's going to be soft.
So rusty. I don't even know what he went on vacation for. Like, what was he doing? Was he chilling on a beach or something? I guess
don't know.
maybe next time we get to interview him.
I want to say it was a cruise, but I don't know why that pops into my mind. That might just
That's
be
where
you.
I went.
Yeah.
But
You and Rock
I
Monkey
didn't
are
see
the
him
same
there.
person.
So as far as predictions, you said Envy. What do you got?
I've got Envy as well.
Yeah, and little does everyone know we actually are the same person, me and Rock Monkey. No one's ever seen us in the same room at one
Her
time.
alter
so.
ego.
Gabby just secretly frags at Paladins
Hannah
all the
Montana
time.
reboot with Gabby and Rock Monkey.
No, when I'm not here, that's what I'm doing, everybody. But next up, and the last match that we have is SK versus Renegades.
This is a tough one. Another tough-ish one to call if it's like this week is that week, right?
Yeah.
If this is that week for Mouse Sports to finally beat NIP, maybe, sure. But for me, I've still got Renegades in this particular matchup.
Same, and for pretty much the exact same reasons when it comes down to it. I think the pickup of Moonchopper is really strong for them, and I feel like SK, even though they've started to find their ground, haven't quite hit the same marks the Renegades have. And, I mean, if this week is the week they show up, then maybe in the future that changes. But as of right now, especially with the way last week went, I'm still kind of shaky on them.
It looks like we all went with Renegades with our predictions. Wait, did we predict the same thing for all of them?
I think
then?
so.
I think
So we're...
Again, I
guess-
think this could be that sweep week. We had one last split. We probably are going to have one this split at some point, and this could easily be that week.
And speaking of Renegades, you have those veterans like Loki who's been leading the charge in a lot of these fights and actually had a tremendous play during this last week.
Yeah. Let's take a look at it. I mean, that's the best way, I think, to break it down. Quadra kills, like you said, galore. We had 2
So
in the
many
console
quads.
series, and Leon's got to be one of the most fun characters to watch get a quadra kill just because of the way that her kit flows. Each ability plays off the others and maybe reduces cooldowns, and by the time you're hitting your third ability, your first one that you just used already come back up, getting kills with your ultimate, maybe that's back up as well. In the case we saw that one really, really close call that was actually deciding a point fight on Frozen Guard when the EV shot hit right before that enlightenment. That was pretty sick.
That was pretty insane. And yeah, the quads are usually very flashy with Leon. I think one time we did get to see a quad just with the enlightenment. We were casting that.
Yeah.
during
Where was that?
PGS
I think that was Brazil,
LATAM.
wasn't
It was like,
Or was it
it was
LATAM?
Brazil or
Right,
LATAM
Brazil, one of
PGS.
Yeah, it was because there's a convergence
Yeah.
from Saris, and then it was
Oh,
through the doorway
man.
on Bright Marsh, and then just going and
The
said,
sound that made was just like so meaty. Just 4 people just
Yep.
getting absolutely obliterated. And I was like, oh my God. We even saw it. That's like all like, we saw the convergence go out. It hits 4 people. And then I just started going, oh my
you see this long
God.
wind up, and we were looking from
It's
that perspective, so it's just
happening.
like, ah. But as you said, this wasn't the only quad to happen, and there's another one from Mary Jane who made their PPL premiere during this last week. So let's take a look. It was here on the Knessa.
I think this is really fitting because, like, the first time I remember Mary Jane playing that I ever got to see, it was on Knessa on Frog Isle, and it was just one of those moments that really stuck with me. The only reason I could remember the player, and it's just exactly what you would want. Really good aim, really consistent play, and just finding the shots.
And that's against NIP, right? So that's against a team of those veteran guys that, again, treading water. So for my money, VP are the ones that are, if anything, closing in on NIP.
And our number 1 is also a quad, this time from Koa. I'm telling you, just so many quads this time. And here it is on the Cassie.
And it's got to be more impressive when it comes from that you know, what's the word for it? The guy that flexes off some of the tanks. He's been all over the place for Mouse Sports, playing a little front line, mostly support in Season 1, and now back on the DPS. And that was just something that we talked about when he came into the league, was that this guy has a long history on the DPS, and this is just one of those Cassie flanks paying off.
Yeah, it's the case, just Cassie being Cassie, right?
That could have been a pentakill.
It could have been.
Like there was like one shot, one bolt that was like a hair too late on Elven Path.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine how you'd feel as it, like, even as Elven, like, you die once to the Cassie, then you reanimate, then you die twice to the Cassie. That has to be worse.
That was actually when we go back. You remember the hype videos for like the teams we did where NVA has a Rubu's pentakill? That could have been a hexakill because of Terminus. He missed one of the kills onto Terminus.
Well, despite all the quads galore during this last week, not every play was so fantastic. I dropped bodies with our fail of the week, dropping his own body, it seems.
Just watch it in all its glory. Okay, so he like goes around here. I can't exactly remember what happens in this one. He does jump off the map though, right? It's got to be. There was a Zin.
Wonk.
Oof.
Just barely misses the ledge.
Just Charlie Brown's right off the railing. There was a Zin. I swear to God. I called it out because I saw just like the silhouette of it. He just like ults off the map, and I was like, "What?" it was so far like in the back line, but I was like, I don't know. But that was a pretty righteous one to watch as well.
That's, I think, the worst case because you can see he knew exactly where he was planning on landing, and it was just like that moment going down where you're like, I can save it, and then you're gone.
Indecision, man, it'll get you killed. Hesitation.
It's tough. But we also had a game last week, and we have it here too. Some points thrown around.
Look at her just getting up on her high horse.
You know,
I'm gonna raise my seat.
There it is, all the way up.
Gabby up on her high horse up here. You get a point, and Nick, you lose 10. That's how it goes.
I only get one.
I didn't take any points away. There's
Not yet.
I think he went down too far.
I'm gonna go. This is symbolic for me starting in a hole in this game. That's how it goes.
Yeah. Well,
Oh man, that's the next level.
Let's get to
we
it.
can get electric chairs.
Yeah, we
that
just get
adjust
our
based on
chairs just
points.
like go up and down based on.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
yes.
man.
I don't know. I haven't decided if I'm going to make
Put
it
that
easy
on the
for
wish list.
productions yet. Well, first things first, we've talked a lot about just general meta discussion. This triple DPS as opposed to double frontline, and everyone kind of trying to stick to their guns or switch it up. So starting off, no points.
Yes, I can win.
I can win.
I can win if there's no points.
Well, fine, whatever. Starting off with Gore.
It's almost like the points were never there in the first place.
You know what? I'm
And your power's imaginary.
I feel so weak right now.
You have that laughing like Lord of the Rings guy. You have no power here.
I had it for such a short time, man. Like,
You got 1 week, and you threw out that 0.5, and that was really what killed it. Everyone's
Easy
like,
come,
no more of
easy
that.
go.
Yeah, as soon as I went into decimals, that's when I wouldn't be surprised if like actually sabotage some things so that we can't have points this week. Doesn't want to do the fast maths anymore. But back on my discussion, we are still going to talk about these points, not the actual points. So, Gore Miser, your thoughts on triple DPS?
I think there are the teams that run it well, and I think that's the case where we have like Fnatic right now are, I think, the biggest example of why you should run triple DPS. They're the reason, like, if you're looking at it, this is what's going to work, this is how you make it work. And I think as long as they can kind of flex around, I think it's the support that really kind of makes it key. Usually it was like, we have to have Genos for this, but I feel like we've seen a lot of teams flexing around. You don't have to just have the Genos. And I honestly think it's a little bit stronger just because even though that second tank front body can be really hard to get rid of, once you have the DPS online, like, they aren't doing enough damage on the other side to actually make a difference.
Ooh, pretty good.
Yeah, and I mean, anything being a hard and fast meta, or anyone that says there's a hard and fast meta in the past 6 months is probably not really worth listening to. So I don't think it's the catch-all for any of these maps in particular. And like you said, some of these teams might not run it as well, but when you have a team like Fnatic who just have the 3 DPS guys that you can trust to do it, on top of the fact that you've got the best solo frontliner in the world because of like how he plays in R, just not because he goes like AFKs on the objective, because he's like throwing out like walls to peel for his teammates. He'll do anything to peel for his teammates because both he and Gera recognize that that is the win condition, and they're just going to play to that strength, and that's why I think it works so well for them. Maybe Na'Vi will never get there. Maybe they will always just beat Fnatic with double tanks or whatever it is. But I think the more you see like new champions come in, like for Khan, for instance, like he might be the tipping point of why we see more double tank now, because he's now pushed one of those front lines out of the bans back in, whether it's Makoa getting back in rotation or whatever it is. New champions coming in are going to be hard to always have a 3 DPS meta, especially as more frontliners come into the fold.
Well, next topic
I feel
is...
so...
Yeah.
Do you get some points for that so you can rise up?
Oh my gosh. Well.
Gabby, pull me out of the dirt here, please.
All right. Well, this is how I'm gonna do it.
These look like they're not my hands.
They kind of do, man. You look like you're in that skit where somebody's just got their arms like behind you.
See now what I wanted to say about this today.
We'll use those hands to talk about some Barrick, your favorite.
Gore, take it away.
You just
don't
don't-
wanna-
you
you
just-
don't
I
wanna
wish
try
I wish I
on
could
this one?
sink my chair out of the desk
You
right
can
now.
just dip out.
You played yourself by doing that a little too early.
Yeah.
You're actually Barrick's height right now.
Yeah.
Unless that gun over there,
Boy,
which
it
no one
sucks
on
down
camera
here.
can actually see, is accurate, in which case Barrick is a behemoth.
I mean, real talk. Rubu frags on it sometimes, right? You know, the Tinker and Barrick. I've always been fine with Tinker and Barrick. It's only when Architectonics was the meta that spawned and spurned my hatred onward for Barrick. That it was just so literally like the player, it didn't even matter who you put on this character. You just put turrets down and ran around like an idiot, survive, and let them do the damage. I don't have a problem with Tinker and Barracks. I'm still not in love with the character overall, but sometimes if that's all that's left in the draft, I get it. I think he works well with Luminary. Rubu outfragged Rock Monkey with it at the Vegas event, so you know there's only so much I can say to disparage it. But again, as long as it's tinkering, as long as it's someone fragging and getting really aggressive with it, will I ever love seeing Bugsy on this more than like a Zen? No.
I would say pretty much the same path, but I also throw Hair Trigger in there. Just a little bit where it's like, okay, now you're just going to shotgun really fast. It's kind of fun to watch, but at the same time, it's in that area of, you know, like, why?
Yeah. Why?
It's got a
Why?
sick ultimate. And also the builds are starting to change. Like the Rocket Boots bowling balls, like reset builds, are
those
starting
are
to mean
fun.
anything, and those are
I called
pretty.
it Sonic, because
pretty
one time like
memeable.
he's using like the blue Barrick skin, he's just running around all the
Oh
time.
man,
You got to go fast.
there you go.
Well, we actually also introduced a new champion last Friday during patch notes, and I want to get your thoughts on how you think Furia is going to come into things once she's available in competitive play.
So she officially comes out on like what, Wednesday? I think normally is when we put the characters out, you know, barring any major issues, and then it's 2 more weeks before she's in ranked, and then 1 more week after that before she's available in our competitive rule set sanctioned tournaments. I think Gore and I both, like, we're working off kind of the same source material. I only have like a little bit of memeing around in the practice range with her, and I watched Gara's video on it. Her ability to solo support seems like it is freaking there. I mean, that her one talent where the more missing health your allies have, the more that she's going to heal works great. She brings both aspects, I think, that make you know, burst healers and throughput healers strong. She's got sort of the best of both worlds, so to speak. A really cool kit that brings a lot of skill stealing. Like, not quite as hard as a Maldamba stun there, but I think there's a lot of potential for individually mechanically gifted support players to shine with this character, unlike almost any of the others.
I want to describe her kind of like Genos 2.0. Like, if you could take Genos and get what he does
Wow.
and then just kind of turn it up a little bit, it's like, okay, your healing's going to be a little bit more. You're not going to have the same, like, damage boost. Well, like you said, you have a lot more
That ult.
in-depth kit. And, of course, yeah, her ult, I think, is the thing
So
that's going to
sick.
be literally
Yeah.
game-changing.
Whoa, look at
if
that
given
kill
the
feed.
I know, did
proper
you see
fight.
What was that?
She's a beast.
She's fragging out.
Dear God, what have we done? Just so we're all
Oh,
clear, if anyone loses a team fight with a Furia ult active, we have to call it getting Wonderful. Because he was like, you'll never lose a team fight with this ultimate. I'm like, all right, if they do, it's on you, buddy.
It's been established.
You're going to have
in
to remember that
stone.
for, like, what, week 5? Like, I
Getting
think, like, the last
Wonderful.
2 days,
Don't
maybe?
get Wonderful. That's all I ask.
False split. Don't get Wonderful.
I mean, at least he has a name that has like a positive word in it and stuff. It doesn't sound like
It
a bad
sounds very
thing if you
negative.
don't know what we're
Time to
referring
put a negative spin on it.
So overall, you think that Furia is going to find some popularity when she first comes into it then?
Yeah, and I also think it's going to finally probably put in the dirt, if it hasn't already, that like ban Maldamba and Genos thing, because I think Grover solo is so viable, Pip solo is so viable, people are picking up Saris and succeeding with it as well. The fact that that's already there, you throw her into the mix, and I think that strategy until there's 6 bans is completely dead.
She's got a really good kit, and she's badass. Like, that's
Yeah.
literally all you need to make the champion one. Like, I've been wanting to play her for days now. Like, since the reveal,
Yeah, she's
I've
so
just been sitting
cool,
around like,
dude.
man, I can't wait till she's released because I'm just going to grind.
Pants or no pants, she's so cool.
Yeah, either way, she's pretty boss. But we, like last week, had an interview conducted by Rain Day with Simsaloo, the newest addition to NIP. So let's hear what he had to say.
Guys here on Esports Esports Weekly. It's Rain Day and Sim Salute. The last time I interviewed this man, he was holding a trophy, the MVP trophy, at the November Fall LAN in 2017, right before Worlds. Virtus Pro had a little bit of a struggle there, didn't bring him to HRX, and therefore he has been without a team for the last 5 months, now finding himself on NIP, a resurgence, a chance for redemption. Simsalou, in your own words, what does it feel like to be back?
It feels great. I'm very excited to be on NIP. It's been a roster that I actually wanted to be on for a while, even way back. My old teammate Bunker, like we were in the team like probably like way back. I don't remember the exact dates, but being with Bunker again is amazing, and I love every moment of it. And it's a very fun time to playing with Shippa and Perdo because they're not memers. So when you try to meme them, they either spew the most funniest things, or they just say, "Oh, what do you mean?"
They're either totally lost or they say something that just falls right into continuing the meme. It's a beautiful kind of group of guys to play against. A lot of personalities, but a quiet personality as well with strong intentions for how to play the game. You yourself have a lot of strong intentions for how you like to play the game. Known for your cheese strats, known for bringing out Pip, and you were actually one of the first people who pioneered the hot swap Fusillade Drogos on Bright Marsh back in that November Fall LAN when Drogos wasn't really played much. They said you can't pick the buck into the Drogos, but you did. It worked. Talk to me about the cheese strats and the things you've got prepped for this upcoming season.
Let me just say that the character that we more likely than not will pull out is a character I've been playing on my Smurf for 129 games.
Okay.
And
that's a lot of games.
It's a lot of games, and I will say that I might have gotten mad. I might have just tilted a little bit playing the character because it's not fun. But, outside of that department, when the cheese works, I just found so much fun by that. And I'm pretty, excited to pull that out and see how we perform with it. I'm pretty confident that going into any team with the cheese we have, I think we can pull some victories and some winning sets.
Well, you have confidence, Simsy, but this whole return is marred by the reason you were not playing for quite a while. Obviously, mistakes happen, and you are a better player for it, a better person for it. Do you feel that as a result of this experience for you, you've grown? Have you learned? Have you been able to kind of turn a new leaf in terms of who you are, your performance, your understanding of this opportunity, and to work with players of this caliber?
Yeah, I completely understand it. And actually, before going right into that, I do want to apologize to every team that got affected by the stupidity that I did. It was none of my intentions. It was just a stupid move by me, and I have learned to go past it, and I hope that whatever I can do for the future and never do the exact same thing ever again. Anyways, going forward with the question for the answer, nice wording there, is that, yeah, definitely, I've learned from my mistakes. It was just stupid on me to even do that in the first place. I think that people will forgive me over time, and I feel like I'm a lot more excited to grind now because you got the hot blood, you got the high spicy drama, like it should happen, it's like
a little Italian there.
They call me, wait, who was it? Was it Cyber or Fisher? That was
Cyber's Italian.
Cyber. They call me Cybate.
They call me Cybate. Well, you guys are playing Cybate this week as well, and we did talk a little bit in your pre-interview, but maybe for people watching the show, how are you feeling about the chances of getting a go at Fnatic with NIP having Perdo and Sheepa, and Bird against obviously Bugsy? You've got Theo, you've got these Jera, these great players who have all played against each other. You're now in the mix of all that spicy drama.
I don't think we're in hot drama. I don't think anybody, when it comes to ship up Perdo, has any hot drama with bugs or anything like that. More than anything, I feel like if there is considered like hot blood, it's just the competitive spirit at that point. We just I would imagine that NIP is hungry, like we are. I can personally say for myself that I'm hungry to get those W's and not get those L's because I have massive ego. But I don't think there's any hot blood between anybody when it comes from the old roster D69. I think if anything, it's just more like non-Fnatic or NIP. We don't want to lose. Fnatic doesn't want to lose. It's just going to be a straight battle of seeing who can you know, mechanical outplay, who can cheese the most.
Yep, who can cheese the
That's
most.
me, baby.
Well, you know, and
Or
I
just-
think it's a cool way you described it, because to me, I look at this, if you're a basketball fan, the way Shaq and Kobe were when they split up. They all had 3 rings together, and it's like, all right, who's going to get the most by the end of their careers? And I think when you look at this, there is this competition of, hey, I don't feel any bad blood towards you. I don't think anyone in Paladins really hates anybody else, but there's this huge thing in the back of everybody's mind of, how many lands do you have? How many world championships do you have now? And how many do I have? And there's still that race for that elusive kind of world championship that no one on those teams that have split has actually gotten since they split. So this is just that one step in, you know, towards that future being created. Simsy, now you have your own mark to make. If you were going to look back at the season, say, let's flash forward 6 months from now, and you look back at this year, what would you like to have said has been done? What would you have liked to accomplish in the PPL?
I would call my mom. I won the championship. You better make some cookies, you know, like last year. But this time, it's gonna be extra large.
Oh,
And, you know, extra large.
Chocolate
But
chip?
That's great. Yeah. Ooh. Actually, that's a good idea. I was thinking more like, you know, something vanilla, but chocolate chip sounds, that's pretty good.
spicy.
And what I hope to achieve is that something I can probably say that I'm good at the game. And I felt like, you know, last year I got this complete sellout. I felt like it wasn't deserved as much, and I hope that this year I can prove that, and I will definitely try my hardest to get better at everything as when it comes to character pool and even as a personal as a person.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much, Simsy, for joining us. Good luck in your matchup against Fnatic this week, and thanks for taking the time out with us. I thought you were very honest in this interview, and it's great to see you back in the scene, and I hope you stay here this time. And don't leave us. Don't leave us. Even if there are good cookies that your mom's offering in some other scene somewhere else.
I mean, I'll just bake it myself, but it's always going to be worst. But,
No.
you know, there's always backup.
You can't bake your own cookies at this point. I won't let you. I won't let you. That's Mom. Don't take that away from her. Thanks, Simsy. We look forward to seeing you again in your matchups. That's
Thank you.
Esports Weekly's interview for this week, and stay tuned for more.
Hey, he cut his hair. That means when you cut your hair, you're just copying Simsaloo.
Yikes.
She's just calling you out now.
I'm getting flamed. I'm gonna go back down here. Getting flamed
We'll
again.
get you some cookies.
Yeah,
I would
want
love some.
Actually,
cookies.
that'd be really good right now.
Don't get too distracted.
Yeah, no, I got to get back in.
Yeah, well, let's move past the cookies meme for a second and introduce some new memes into our life, courtesy of Joe. Let's hop to it.
I don't know. Still thinking about that Ash. You know, when I'm seeing like those
Dreaming about that Ash.
360s, 370s, it's just it doesn't feel like it's hitting hard enough.
The bands, and I think to quote William Shatner here,
Gone!
he's coming through. He's in the game. He's excited, and I'm kind of excited with him, honestly, to see how he's going to be coming through.
Crew here. I'm Evan Rainday Rayner. Of course, I've got Alyssa Husky with me. Ira's Alyssa. I've got Mr. Thunderbrush, who likes to, you know, I guess remain anonymous for now.
Forward, and there's a buck in my face. Not necessarily where you really want to be.
There's
but
a buck in my face.
it's a little bit worse than poisoning the water hole.
That's
As
right.
You get a shotgun in your face, you don't know what to do.
That's right.
Oh man.
You gotta give it to Joe, man. Even with the shorter
even
amount
with
of
a
time that he
week.
had, yeah, he still
Even with a
came
week.
through. He still came through. But we'll have more of those every Esports Weekly.
That's a top quality memer right there,
I
dude.
forgot about the entire Woody thing. Like, I
Dude, that Woody
completely
face.
forgot about that.
I've never even seen that Woody face. That was awesome.
I
But now that's what I call edgy. Oh
Yeah.
man,
I didn't know he was such a memer until we started seeing these videos. It's like, Joe.
that was mad funny.
Oh
Big
my.
props to doing again with the week of source material still being pretty much as
Yeah.
funny as he was with the 2 months of land footage.
Right? But last thing we have to talk about is the Paladins Global Series. And not a meme in this case. We've actually seen some good play from some of the players that have returned, including Osrhino.
Yeah, I mean, Ozareno, specifically the reason I wanted to talk about him this week is because we saw him play a little bit of DPS, specifically Zin, and seeing that branch out from one of the newer players of this Kanga roster is, I know, Kanga, whoop-de-doo. It's Nick. But seeing that,
I didn't even think about that.
I want to see this team kind of come back to that reputation that they once have, and breaking every semifinal of every LAN that they have been to, and not really having the showing, and it felt like it was a little bit of the Diggy Dog, the Chronix, the Joel show, and that's just not the way we've seen now. You can't get maybe even any wins out of LAN unless you have all 5 guys firing and being that caliber of player that is going to be able to get the wins in the international scene, which is not getting any easier.
I'm kind of curious because I think last week we didn't get to see Space Station Gaming, and it was during the exact same time that they had mentioned that Ares wasn't going to be on their team anymore.
Did Chromospace show up?
Looking at them, no, Chromospace wasn't there either. All these teams they're taking a week off.
Yeah, well, they earned it.
I'm excited to see.
But yeah, no Ares for SSG, and that'll be an interesting sort of thing to watch pan out for them.
I think it's going to be interesting to see who they replace him with, because if I remember, like, the long history of it was that Ares was on another team that kept beating them as their roster before they were Space Station, and then they said, okay, he's the reason you're winning. We want him on our team, and now that he's not going to be there, I'm kind of curious where the team's going to fall.
And then note on Chromospace, they actually got picked up by Armada, it sounds like, so there's a bit of a shift.
Congrats. Good for them.
It's nice always getting that, I want to say that support, I guess, from an org and being able to come through and be hefty, being better.
Yeah.
Solid.
Exactly. Well, you have that support system around you, whether it's
I lost words there.
Your coach or your analyst. It certainly helps out teams like Envious and having that support around you, allowing you to, they take care of most of that nitty gritty stuff, allows you to just focus on being the great player that you can be.
Cool. So whether it's PCS, PGS, PPL, whatever it may be, final thoughts going into week number 2.
I mean, I said this could either be one of the most historic weeks of PPL ever, or it could be another sweep week, but the only way to find out is to tune in.
I just think it's going to be fun. I think there's a lot of matchups that, even if they are sweeps, are going to be fun to watch, and there's going to be a lot of teams that I think that didn't show up through the first week of the PGS or in the PCS that are going to have a lot to show this week.
Well, remember, everyone, we do have PCS broadcasted later on today, as well as PGS and PPL throughout the week. You can always catch those broadcasts on live.paladins.com, and any additional information you need on Twitter at PaladinsPro. That's going to do it for us here. We're going to take a little bit of time before we go into that PCS broadcast, so see you soon.